Now we have another bigger picture story about how inter-office relationships have been a long-time trend at Google, which isn't necessarily new to many of us, but in this climate, it's really hitting home. Tell us what we know now.
So yeah, there's a story that was written in the information by a former colleague of mine, Reed, and he basically reported a long history of some top Google executives in relationships, consensual relationships, but often relationships with subordinates, and these were often not reported. Some of them came out in the media a few years ago, and the general effect on other employees at Google was that they thought that it wasn't as much of a meritocracy as maybe outwardly Google looks, and it caused a lot of concern for women. Some women, for example, who did well by just doing very, very well, but they were spending a lot of time with male executives, and in one example they were teased, and it was implied that they kind of got time with executives because they were good looking and things like that.
David, many of these relationships were well known. They've been reported about. A relationship between Larry Page and Marissa Mayer in the early days. Sergey Brin's relationship with Amanda Rosenberg on the Google Glass team. The information reported a new relationship with David Drummond, the chief legal counsel, and one of his subordinates, essentially. What do you make of how? Do you think this is problematic? And if so, how problematic?
Well, I think that it seems problematic for Google, and at least the article in the information also pointed out that the company is making a very determined effort to change its policies, to enforce its rules much more methodically. But I think all of us, as you know, as you mentioned yourself, who've covered this company, have observed some of these things in the past, and we are in a different moment now. And I think the entire industry is moving towards more awareness of what is proper and what isn't, and to try to really come up with rules and policies that prevent men in particular from abusing their power over women. But I also think it is worth noting something that some former Google employees mentioned in that information article, which is really that Google is probably more than any other big company, the most effective machine for producing extremely talented and effective women leaders of tech. So that is a weird possible sort of tautology or contradiction, but even as we can see they've had problems with these power relations and potential abuse, they also have generated an extraordinary number of very, very talented women technology leaders.